Bishop Mansour for his great work in these 3 years. I asked him to do it. He at first had hesitations, but accepted it full force, and I think has brought the whole charism of the Eastern churches to that job as well. So, Bishop Mansour, thank you very, very much for that work. Now, where are we? Here. As we debate and vote on action items, please raise a green card to speak in favor, a red card to speak against, a yellow card for a question of clarification, and a white card for a point of order. We go now to the clergy, consecrated life, and vocations. Cardinal Tobin. While Cardinal Tobin is on the way, we want to thank Father Ralph O'Donnell, who will conclude his service as Executive Director at the end of this year. And we welcome Father Luke Ballman of the Archdiocese of Atlanta as new Executive Director, with gratitude to the Archdiocese of Atlanta for releasing him for service. So thanks, Father O'Donnell and Father Ballman. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Brothers, you have before you the Group 1 amendments to action item number 4, Program of Priestly Formation, 6th edition, which has been accepted by the committee. At this time, I would also note that there was one set of modifications submitted with the amendments. Since these had already been received and considered by the committee in the preceding modifications process, they were not included with the Group 1 amendments. As Yogi Berra said, it was like deja vu all over again. I move that these amendments be accepted at the recommendation of the committee.
Brothers, if any member desires separate consideration of any amendment in Group 1, will he please raise his hand to be recognized by the chairman, and when called upon, identify only the number or numbers of the amendments he wishes to discuss. Momentarily, he will have an opportunity to explain in detail the substance of his request.
Anyone?
Do we have anyone?
Yeah.
I don't see anyone. There being no such requests, Cardinal Tobin's motion is granted, and all of the amendments in Group 1 are adopted. Okay.
No, we just turn the page.
Okay, now we move on to this. Brothers, we go even further. Brothers, I ask that...
Oh, it'd be you. Cardinal Tobin.
Brothers, I ask that we now take up the Group 2 amendments, which are before you. I move that these amendments, which have not been accepted by the committee, be rejected.
Cardinal Tobin moved that Group 2 amendments, those rejected by the committee, be rejected. Brothers, if any member desires separate consideration of any amendment in Group 2, will he please raise his hand to be recognized, and when called upon, identify only the number or numbers of the amendments he wishes to discuss. Momentarily, there will be an opportunity to explain in detail the substance of his request. Do we have anyone who wants to put up there? I don't see any. No. There being no such requests, all of the amendments in Group 2 are rejected. Okay.
So, pages? Page 6 of 7.
6, okay. This is wild. Brothers, seeing no more amendments in need of consideration, I ask Cardinal Tobin to move the action before us.
Thank you, Cardinal. Brothers, at this time, I move that the members of the USCCB approve the Program of Priestly Formation, 6th edition, for use in the Diocese of the United States.
Thank you, Cardinal Tobin. Brothers, at this time now, I invite any discussion on this motion, the Program of Priestly Formation. We have some people who want to talk about it.
Bishop Estevez.
Bishop Estevez.
I just would like to share with all of us that for the last 2 years, closely related to this new PPF 6th edition, we have been working, a team of us have been working, Bishop Andrew Cousins and I have been part of that group, and we have been deepening especially the choice of celibacy for the formation of priests based on affective maturity, and which is both spousal and paternal. And this research that we have been doing will be made in a form of a book, which will be called Spiritual Husbands, Spiritual Fathers, and will be made available as a tool to the implementation of the PPF edition.
Have any comment?
I have no comment on that. Thank you, Bishop.
Any further comments by Bishop
Conlon?
Bishop Conlon?
Clearly, one of the significant changes in the 6th edition
Robert.
is the addition of the probedeutic year. And it's clear from the work of the committee, including some of the rejected amendments, that you intend for there to be a great openness and flexibility in structuring the year and even placing the year within the term of formation. It will be very helpful if the committee and the staff monitors what occurs in the development of the probedeutic year, because I suspect that there will be considerable variety across the country. So to see what different dioceses or regions do with this and reporting that back to the bishops as we go along would be very helpful.
Thank you, Bishop. I would, if you allow me to make an immediate suggestion, and as this is a discipline that I've had to learn in the discussions, to not refer to that period in the initial formation as a year, to refer to it as the stage. I don't think it's simply empty words. We do pay respect as we have to the expectation of the ratio fundamentalis, that no less than 1 year, no more than 2 years. We prefer to call it stage to emphasize what really has to be before our eyes is not first and foremost the passage of time, but rather those benchmarks. And we wanted to be as clear and as economic as we were with the benchmarks, which often take a prescriptive form, leaving the flexibility that's necessary in a national church like ours.
Okay. Brothers, please use your voting device to cast a vote for action item number 4, the Program of Priestly Formation, 6th edition, for use in the dioceses of the United States. Monsignor Bransfield.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Again, the item is displayed, action item number 4, on the screen before you. I'd ask that the voting be opened. Voting is open. Please vote now. Required is 2/3 conference membership with subsequent recognitio from the congregation for the clergy. Voting is closed. Please note this action requires at least 178 yes votes to pass. The ballots from the bishops in Rome are being added to the totals. vote is ready. It will be displayed. 226 in favor. The motion passes.
I would like to take this moment to thank very sincerely the members of the CCLV committee, its consultants, and the staff here at the conference. Their talents and their hard work allowed us to not only produce 3 major documents during this 3-year period, the Directory on the Life and Ministry of Permanent Deacons, reaffirming our Episcopal commitments, and the PPF 6.0. But also to remain in liaison with related groups across the country. For the PPF especially, we relied on a number of consultations with men and women who are skilled in the areas of formation, and we're grateful for their input. And thank you for your patience, which allowed us to deliver the goods. I would remind you that for now, PPF 5 remains in force until the Recognitio is received from the Congregation for the Clergy. At that point, the implementation of the 6th edition will take place over a period of time. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you also, Cardinal Tobin. This was a massive work of consultation for the 6th edition of the program of priestly formation. It involved lots of people in the United States in various stages of priestly formation and discernment. So, Cardinal Tobin, we also want to thank you for your leadership in all of that. God bless you on that. We now want to call on the Committee for Divine Worship.
Archbishop Blair.
Archbishop Blair will be present as Archbishop Gregory is in Rome right now, and he is coming forward for an action item related first to the Christian initiation of adults.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Dear bishops, I present to you action item number 6, the ISIL Grey Book of the Order for the Christian Initiation of Adults, a new translation of the Latin typical edition of these rites. As I mentioned to you yesterday, the committee is proposing this text as a base text, which will then be supplemented and rearranged after the model of the current book used in this country. The vote on the final version of the book will therefore take place at a subsequent meeting. Passage of this item requires a two-thirds vote of the Latin Church members of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Once the book arrives in its definitive form, it will then require the confirmatio and recognitio of the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments. You have at your places the Group 1 amendments, those accepted by the Committee on Divine Worship. I move that the Group 1 amendments be accepted by the body of bishops.
Brothers, if any member desires separate consideration of any amendment in Group 1, will he please raise his hand to be recognized by the chairman, and when called upon, identify only the number or numbers of the amendments wished to be discussed. Momentarily, he will have an opportunity to explain in detail the substance of his request. I don't see it. Okay. There being no such requests, Archbishop Blair's motion is granted, and all of the amendments in Group 1 are adopted. Okay, Archbishop Blair.
You also have at your places the Group 2 amendments, those not accepted by the Committee on Divine Worship. I move that the Group 2 amendments be rejected by the body of bishops.
Archbishop Blair moved that Group 2 amendments, those rejected by the committee, be rejected. Brothers, if any member desires separate consideration of any amendment in Group 2, will he please raise his hand to be recognized, and when called upon, identify only the number or numbers of the amendments he wishes to discuss. Momentarily, there will be an opportunity to explain in detail the substance of his request. Is anybody but there? Someone put a card. See any? Okay. There being no such requests, all of the amendments in Group 2 are rejected. Okay.
I now move that the Latin Church members of the USCCB approve the ISIL Gray Book of the Order for the Christian Initiation of Adults, a new translation of the Latin typical edition of these rites.
Thank you, Archbishop Blair. Brothers, at this time, I invite now any additional discussion you would like to have on this current text translation. I presume there are no catechumens present. Okay. Brothers, please now use your voting device to cast a vote for action item number 6, the ISIL Gray Book translation of the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults for use in the dioceses of the United States. Monsignor Bransfield.
Your Eminences, Your Excellencies, please note this action requires an affirmative vote by 2/3 of the Latin Church members in order to be approved, so that is number 164 yes votes. Latin Church members, both auxiliary and diocesan, are welcome to vote. Please select 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain. The voting is open for 30 seconds. Please open the vote. The voting is open. Please vote now. Voting is closed. We will tally the vote, including those bishops voting in Rome.
First, we have a demonstration of the hymns.
Right. And just instead of action 4, you'd say action number 5. Looks like we're ready to display the vote. With 217 votes, the motion passes.
Very good. Very good. Now, at this point, thank you, Archbishop Blair, for that. We go to action item number 5, and I believe there's a demonstration involved in this, Archbishop Blair.
Yes, there is. Bishops, the second action item from the Committee on Divine Worship is the translation of the hymns of the Liturgy of the Hours. Many of you will recall that in November 2012, we approved a scope of work for a new edition of the Breviary. At that time, we voted to ask ISIL to translate all the Latin hymns in the typical edition of the Liturgy of the Hours, with the clear intention that our new breviary will incorporate the hymns of the Latin edition. The consensus at that time was that anyone who wished to use other hymns would certainly be free to do so by using other hymnals approved for liturgical use. Now, after the passing of these years, ISIL has finished its work, and the proposed translations of the 294 hymns of the breviary are now before you. The translators have aimed to capture the content of the Latin text with fidelity and precision, and I hope you'll agree that these texts are incredibly rich in their theology and in their imagery. Now, you'll notice that they do not rhyme, but I would point out that the Latin originals typically do not rhyme either. The translations do, however, maintain a meter and the accentuation patterns of the Latin. And this is extremely important because it means that the English texts will work very well for recitation, but more importantly, they'll sing very well to both popular hymn tunes and to the Gregorian melodies of the tradition of the Latin Rite. Because of the importance of the carefully designed meter and accentuation that's required of hymnody, we're proposing that this be a non-amendable action item. Certainly, if you catch a typo or something of that nature, you can bring it to the attention of our staff. Approval of this text requires affirmative vote by 2/3 of the Latin Church members of the USCCB, with subsequent confirmatio of the Congregation for Divine Worship and the discipline of the sacraments. Before we proceed to discussion and vote, we've arranged for a demonstration of these new translations, and we're very happy to have with us today Monsignor Andrew Wadsworth, the Executive Director of ISIL, and others representing the work of ISIL. Our choir present with us today is under the direction of Mr. Adam Bartlett, and the singers are from the Catholic University of America and from Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. At your places, you'll notice you have this short fascicle among your documents with several musical settings. And here's what we'd like to do. We'll have the choir sing a first verse, and then everyone else is invited to join in. So if you would go to the item in there after turning the first page, the circled item number 1. This is the ancient hymn Te Lucis ante terminum, a 7th century hymn we use at night prayer for much of the year. There are many well-known melodies that would work with this text, but today we'll sing it with a tune called Tallis's Canon. So let's begin. The choir will sing the first verse, and then we can And now we'll sing the same hymn, but using music based on the Gregorian melody found in the Liber Hymnarius. Again, the choir will go first, and then we'll join them. And this is the circled number 2.
In
flexibility that has been demonstrated here is very important. Religious communities and seminaries, for example, might want to incorporate the Gregorian melodies into their prayer. But in other settings, in a parish or at a special event, the ability to use a better known tune will perhaps be appreciated. I'd like to ask us to do one more. This time we'll sing a more modern hymn that is used for the common of doctors of the Church. The author was Father Anselmo Lentini, a Benedictine who led the committee that arranged the hymns for the breviary after the Second Vatican Council. This meter is perhaps not as commonly used, but I think you'll recognize the melody, which is sometimes referred to as Poitiers. After the choir sings the first verse, we'll join them in just singing the second verse. Finally, let's sing it with the Gregorian melody. This is circled item number 4. The choir will sing a verse, and then we'll join them for the second verse only and conclude with the Amen.
Christ, we revere you as eternal teacher, graciously showing laws for our salvation, solely possessing words of life and wisdom. Rightly we praise you. Lord, we acclaim you as the world's good shepherd, for you established your true bride in wisdom, that she might always lead in word and witness, light to all nations.
Well, very fine, and I hope that this demonstration has been helpful to all of us in appreciating the work and the value of what's being proposed. Thank you, Adam, and the members of the choir, and thank you, Monsignor Wadsworth, and all of those who have collaborated in ISIL for the work, the tremendous work, really, that's been done on these beautiful hymns. So at this time, I'm happy to take any questions of clarification that the bishops may have.
Brother Bishops, any questions? Yes, I see someone back there. Can't tell. Bishop, please.
Father Mike Malloy, a diocesan administrator from Rapid City. My question simply is, do you know in the long-term project if the melodies to these hymns will be included in the breviary? Right now our 4-volume just has the words, does not have the music. And it would be so helpful to be able to have those melodies so that we can master these songs?
We anticipate these being published as a hymnal, in which case the melodies would be provided, but not in the actual breviary itself, for, I think, reasons of length and such.
Bishop Coyne.
Archbishop, we had in the Committee on Divine Worship, we had talked about the possibility of an app. I know there are good ones out there already, and there's one in English that already provides the melody for the hymns as well as spoken word. But I think it would be very helpful if the conference would consider a breviary app to supplement the 4-volume and to do exactly what Father Malloy suggested, which would be to provide the hymn settings, the musical settings, so that when we're praying by ourselves and you see a meter 6.66 and you say, I have no idea what that is, but we can have the musical text for our own use.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out on behalf of the committee. Needless to say, we have discussions about an app, and being well aware of the use that's made and the help that this can provide, so that would be very much taken into consideration in all of these questions.
Others, no? See no other cards up. Okay. Archbishop Blair, can we move the motion then?
I now move that the Latin Church members of the USCCB approve the ISIL Grey Book translation of the hymns of the Liturgy of the Hours for use in the dioceses of the United States of America.
For this item, 2/3 of the Latin Church.
You're not on. There it is.
You want to use mine? Our singing wasn't that bad.
So for this item, 2/3 of the Latin Church members with subsequent confirmatio by the Congregation for Divine Worship, Discipline of Sacraments, that number is 164 affirmative votes to pass. So we'll open the voting when the clock appears in the lower right-hand corner. The voting is open. Please vote now. I'm back. Voting is closed. We'll tally the vote and we'll integrate the votes.
Yes, thank you to our wonderful choir.
We too would like to, Archbishop Blair, thank the choir, Senior Wadsworth and all for coming for the demonstration. Thanks.
Looks like we're ready to display the vote. "205 yes votes. The translation of hymns of liturgy hours passes.
Thank you very much, and I must say this has been a tremendous effort on the part of ISIL, carried out very competently, and want to thank them and also our own Office for Divine Worship for all of their long efforts and this ongoing project of revitalizing our translations and the liturgy. So thanks to you very much.
Thank you, Archbishop Blair, for Supping for Archbishop Gregory. Thanks to the whole committee. Thanks you for this very important work in the liturgy. Thanks.
Thank you.
At this point, we want to call Archbishop Gomez to the podium. He is going to present action item number 7 for debate and vote.
Thank you, Cardinal Leonardo. Let me just take advantage to thank all of you for your trust and confidence on this morning election. I'm humbled by your support, and I think it is a special blessing for the Latino community as we always reflect on how important it is to take care of our people. So I obviously ask for your prayers because it is a challenging assignment or election. So, but I do my best to continue the leadership of Cardinal DiNardo and also to work together with all of you. I have to say that it's going to be a big change, Cardinal DiNardo, because I don't sing anything. I hope it is okay.
Sounds good already.
So, Cardinal, so thank you, Your Eminence. I would like to begin with some very good news. There were no amendments at all proposed to the video scripts. So thank you, brothers. To help you visualize what the proposed final scripts will look like, we have provided a clean copy on light purple paper at your places. This is for the script for the videos. So it's this one. It is marked proposed final. So, because there were no amendments to these video scripts, I will propose we take up the video scripts question first.
Brothers, seeing no amendments in need of consideration regarding the video scripts, I ask Archbishop Gomez to move the video script portion of the action item before us.
Brothers, at this time I move that the members of the USCCB approve the video scripts for 5 short videos to supplement forming consciences for faithful citizenship.
Thank you, Archbishop Gomez. Brothers, at this time I invite any additional discussion. If that is needed. None, I don't think. Okay. Brothers, please use your voting device to cast a vote for action item number 7, question number 2, the video script for 5 short videos to supplement forming consciences for faithful citizenship. Monsignor Bransfield.
Thank you, Your Eminence. This vote is required as a 2/3 of the membership of the conference. So that would be, let me see, 178 needed to pass. The vote is displayed. When the clock appears, the vote will be open. The vote is open. Please vote now. The vote is closed, and we will integrate with the vote coming in from the bishops in Rome. Vote is 227 in favor. The motion passes.
Thank you, brothers. I now ask Archbishop Gomez to move the letter portion of the two action items before us. Archbishop Gomez.
Thank you, Cardinal. Brothers, I began with the very good news that there were no amendments at all to the video scripts. And I would like now to add that there were just very few amendments to the letter. There were 16 in total, and many of them were nearly identical. Bishop DeWayne, who served as the chairman of the drafting committee for the letter, is here with me to assist in answering questions regarding our approach to these amendments. As with the video scripts, we thought it would be helpful to provide you with a clean copy of the letter to help you visualize what it would look like if the recommendations of the working group are accepted. The document at your places on yellow paper and marked amended is this one. It is only a visual aid. It does not contain line numbers. This is because all of the amendments are based on the line numbers in the original text in the action item. And creating a new and competing set of line numbers will cause confusion. Now, let us turn to the amendments. You have before you the Group 1 amendments to action item number 7, forming consciences for faithful citizenship, which have been accepted by the working group. I move that these amendments be accepted at the recommendation of the working group.
Brothers, if any member desires separate consideration of any amendment in Group 1, will he please raise his hand to be recognized by the chairman, and when called upon, identify only the number or numbers of the amendments he wished to discuss. Momentarily, he will have the opportunity to explain in detail the substance of his request. Cardinal Cupich.
Just the number.
Number 5.
Number 5.
Anyone else?
Any others? Okay. Requests have been made for a separate consideration of amendment number 5. But first, without objection pursuant to Archbishop Gomez's motion, all of the amendments in Group 1, except the one just named, are adopted. So now, we take into consideration that amendment which is up for discussion. That's right. Cardinal Cupich, you are requesting a separate consideration of amendment number 5.
Thank you, Archbishop Gomez, and your committee, and your indulgence in allowing me to submit this again. Your reason for not accepting the entire paragraph 101 of the Apostolic Exhortation, Gaudete et Exsultate, is the need for brevity of the letter, and I appreciate that. But it is precisely the brevity and the succinctness that the Holy Father uses in this paragraph that puts forward all of the elements in the call to holiness that we are to exercise as faithful citizenship. He speaks about the need to make sure we avoid those kind of ideological frameworks that our society today is so paralyzed in our political discourse by. But also, he wants to make sure, as we see here, that not only do we avoid that, but we engage one another. And he also makes sure that we do not make one issue that a political party or a group puts forward to the point where we're going to ignore all the rest of them. And then he also names some that we don't name in our document, and particularly the last sentence of that paragraph, we cannot uphold an ideal of holiness that would ignore injustice in a world where some revel, spend with abandon, and live only for the latest consumer goods, even as others look on from afar, living their entire lives in abject poverty. I think those four elements in which he encapsulates all of the elements that we should be taking in mind as a people who are voting in this country should not be ignored. And so I would ask that consideration be given to adopting in this letter that entire paragraph.
Your Eminence, thank you. We had hoped to do that in choosing the verbiage, as you had earlier suggested to us, at another date, with the equally sacred, and then coming out from there. I might ask Your Eminence if we were to look at the language that presently is there for that paragraph, if we could find a way, because our Holy Father speaks of this throwaway society and other areas also. I'm wondering if we might say new forms of slavery, every form of rejection, and a consumer mentality.
Yes, I understand and I appreciate that attempt at accommodation. My point is that this is the magisterial teaching of Pope Francis put in a very succinct way. And I think we can all benefit from it as we speak to our people about the issues. So from my perspective, it is making sure that we're, as we heard from the nuncio the other day, looking at the magisterium, the particular magisterium of Pope Francis, as a guide for us in this very important document. So I would still like to have the entire paragraph.
The entire paragraph.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to take it as a friendly amendment without objection? It's up to you. It's up to you. You can work with Anthony.
Well, our concern is, as we say, is that it makes the document longer. So, the specific mandate to the body that we received was to produce a short letter. So that's what we decided to.
So you want to see where you are in this?
To include
You want to accept it as a friendly amendment, or? Should we ask the body then?
I think we used to ask the body.
Just continue to vote on it.
All right, so anybody else have any comments on this? There's somebody has their hand. Bishop McElroy.
I want to speak in favor of Cardinal Cupich's amendment for the reasons he stated, but also for an additional one. What has been added to this letter that was not in the previous forms is a statement I believe is at least discordant with the Pope's teaching, if not inconsistent. At the top of the second page of the letter, it says, the threat of abortion remains our preeminent priority because it directly attacks life itself. This is taken from the previous statement, but I believe it is not in keeping with that quote from the Holy Father. And this quote will be used, the preeminent quote, will be used to in fact undermine the point Pope Francis is making in that paragraph. So either we should get rid of preeminent, or if we're going to keep preeminent in there, let's at least give the Pope a fighting chance with his view to keep that whole paragraph in there, because that's where he articulates his vision of this very controversial question. This is the most important focal point of this letter, and it was just added today, and it totally changes the nature of the letter, because it will allow people to use it to say this does overcome all the other issues. It is not Catholic teaching that abortion is the preeminent issue that we face as a world in Catholic social teaching. It is not. For us to say that, particularly when we omit the Pope's articulation of this question, I think is a grave disservice to our people if we're trying to communicate to them what the magisterium teaches. So either we shouldn't have preeminent in there, or we should have the Pope's full paragraph where he lays out his vision of this very same question, delicately balancing all of it in the words he does.
Bishop Strickland, followed by Archbishop Chaput.
I absolutely think preeminent needs to stay.
Archbishop Chaput.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence. I'm certainly not against quoting the Holy Father's full statement. I think it's a beautiful statement. I believe it. But I am against anyone stating that our saying it's preeminent is contrary to the teaching of the Pope, because that isn't true. It sets an artificial battle between the Bishops' Conference of the United States and the Holy Father, which isn't true. So I don't like the argument Bishop McElroy used. It isn't true. You know, we do support the Holy Father completely. What he said is true, but I think it has been very clearly the articulated opinion of the Bishops' Conference for many years that pro-life is still the preeminent issue. It doesn't mean the others aren't equal in dignity. It's just time in the certain circumstances of our church in the United States.
Archbishop Gomez, any further response here?
No, I think the committee prefers not to have the whole quote to the Holy Father. I don't know if we can ask the body if they support the committee or they want us to include the whole.
How do we phrase it then? Okay, brothers, based on the preceding discussion of this amendment, pardon me?
Cordileone has a question.
Archbishop Cordileone.
Oh, please. Archbishop Cordileone.
This will be quick. I just want to point out, I didn't hear the committee mention that you did put it in a reference and a footnote to it.
Yes.
So I presume this is a way of acknowledging the teaching without incorporating the whole text?
Absolutely. That was the idea of the committee. Because obviously we support the teachings of Pope Francis, but I think it is we were called to have a brief document. So that's why we decided not to include the whole quote in this document. But it is the footnote refers directly to that quote of Pope Francis.
I mean, we're saying yes to Cardinal Sulpicius's amendment.
We'll be saying yes to this, if you say it that way.
Okay, brothers, based on the preceding discussions, what we've just heard, please signify by saying A if you wish the amendment, so it's not the amendment to be adopted, is it?
Yeah, as they have it, the amendment as they have it.
This is voting on this particular amendment, isn't it?
Yes. Right, number 5.
And your point is that you do not wish the amendment, you want to keep the text as it is.
In the amendment.
That's correct.
Okay, so in voting A, we're voting on the working group, and what they have is the text now, that's what they want, that's what they're recommending in this. I don't know is that clear to everybody? I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it's clear.
Your Eminence, I think what we did, we accepted the amendment with the change. And the change is the text that you have. So I think Cardinal Cupich is asking us to change our way of doing it, but we think that it's better to keep it as it is, correct? So the committees would like to just accept the amendment with the change that we decided to. Is that possible or not?
Yeah. So the vote, my understanding is, I would certainly defer to the parliamentarian, my understanding is the vote would be, the body would vote aye if they wish the amendment as the committee has proposed it to be adopted, They would vote no if they would ask for the rewording of Cardinal Cupich, what the Cardinal has proposed. So a vote of aye is as the committee has it in the amendments, and would favor the committee, Archbishop Gomez. A vote of no would look to the inclusion of Cardinal Cupich's return to his original amendment, if I understand correctly.
Should we take a electronic vote?
It can be either a voice vote or electronic vote, whatever you prefer.
I think it should be, it's raising questions. I think we should take it as an electronic vote.
So we would do an electronic vote. The technicians will prepare the ballot on the screen. We'll be signifying aye if you wish the amendment to be adopted, as was the recommendation of the working group. So to say aye if it would be, or vote 1, yes, if it is to accept the recommendation of the working group. A vote of number 2 would be a vote to include Cardinal Cupich's wording, an amendment to include the entire quote, if I'm correct. So they're working on the wording of the ballot and will display it momentarily. So adopted as was recommended by the working group, so that's in the amendment before you, in the wording before you. If you would prefer to have Cardinal Cupich's adjustment integrated, you would vote for number 2. If you abstain, you would vote for number 3. Is there any questions? So when we can open the vote will appear when the clock appears and the number appears. The vote is open. Please vote now. It would be a simple majority. The voting is now closed, and they will tabulate the vote and integrate voting with the bishops voting in Rome. Again, it's a simple majority. The majority has it. The amendment is adopted as was recommended by the working group.
Now we go to amendments that were, take up Group 2 amendments. I'm sorry? Oh, okay.
So, brothers, at this time I move that the members of the USCCB approve this short letter to supplement forming consciences for faithful citizenship. Is that correct?
Yes. So,
where's that?
So we go to number 4.
Separate consideration of these two.
Yeah, they're not separate. So now we would move the item. So
I don't know where we are.
So you do page 6. So page 6.
Okay, Archbishop Gomez moved that Group 2 amendments, those rejected by the working group, be rejected. Brothers, if any member desires separate consideration of any amendment in Group 2, will he please raise his hand to be recognized?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Yes, you're fine. I was wrong. So go ahead. Okay. You're perfect.
What's that? What I do now?
No, you're right. You're right. Go ahead.
Nothing.
You're right.
Shall I repeat it all over?
Sure.
Okay, I'll repeat it all over again.
My mistake.
Amendments are too much. Okay. Archbishop Gomez moved that Group 2 amendments, those rejected by the working group, be rejected. Brothers, if any member desires separate consideration of any amendment in Group 2, will he please raise his hand to be recognized, and when called upon, identify only the numbers of the amendments he wishes to discuss. Momentarily, there will be an opportunity to explain in detail the substance of his request. Do we have any for the rejected amendments?
I don't see any.
I don't see any. There being no such requests, all of the amendments in Group 2 are rejected.
Okay, so turn 2 pages.
All right. Brothers, seeing no more amendments in need of consideration, I ask Archbishop Gomez to move the second of the 2 action items before us.
Brothers, now at this time, I move that the members of the USCCB approve the short letter to supplement forming consciences for faithful citizenship.
Thank you, Archbishop Gomez. Brothers, at this time, I invite any additional discussion on this motion, which is ready for a vote. Any discussion at this point? All right. I don't see. No. All right, brothers, please use your voting device to cast a vote for action item number 7, the short letter to supplement forming consciences for faithful citizenship. Monsignor Bransfield.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Your Eminences, Your Excellencies, please note this action requires an affirmative vote by 2/3 of the conference membership in order to be approved. That, again, is at least 178 yes votes. All active bishops, both auxiliary and diocesan, Latin and Eastern Catholic churches, are welcome to vote. Please vote 1 for yes, 2 for no, 3 for abstain. The voting window will be open 30 seconds. Please open the vote. Voting is open. Please vote now. The voting is closed. We'll integrate the vote, tally the vote, and then combine it with those bishops voting in Rome. Looks like we're ready to display the vote. (207) The motion passes.
So, Your Eminence, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Working Group on Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship, including the chairman of the 13 committees who serve as its members. In particular, I thank the chairman of the 2 drafting committees, Archbishop Timothy Broglio, who served as chairman of the drafting committee for the video scripts, and Bishop Frank DeWayne, chairman of the drafting committee for the letter. In addition, thank you to the staff who assisted the working group in many ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop Gomez, and all your group. It's always a very, very, very complicated form. We have a number of different committees and bishops working on that for this faithful citizenship. So, Archbishop Gomez, thank you very, very much for that. And now I would ask Bishop Perez to come forward. I believe Bishop Cepeda will be with him. The Committee on Cultural Diversity in the Church, that's the body of bishops authorizing the Committee on Cultural Diversity, the Subcommittee on Hispanic Affairs, to lead a process about the 5th Encuentro. So, Bishop Perez, it's all yours.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Brother Bishops, I'm happy to present you with the action item number 8. The USCCB norms for statements emanating from the whole body of bishops call for the body to be consulted in some way or form even before the drafting begins. Having heard from many 5th Encuentro leaders Over the past year, the Subcommittee on Hispanic Affairs presented the Committee on Cultural Diversity in the Church with the need and the desire to have a formal response from the bishops to the recommendations of the Fifth Encuentro. The action item is actually present under a purple color paper. The Committee on Cultural Diversity saw the wisdom and timeliness of this initiative and was happy to endorse this undertaking during our next strategic plan. The committee sees the development of a comprehensive formal statement on Hispanic ministry as an appropriate and very concrete pastoral response to what we have seen and heard through the Fifth Encuentro process. I now invite Bishop Cepeda to share with you a bit more of what is envisioned.
Thank you, Bishop Perez, and thank you, Brother Bishops, for your wonderful support of the Quinto Encuentro process in your dioceses. First, I want to share with you that this formal statement is viewed by the Subcommittee on Hispanic Affairs as a very practical response to the recommendations of the Quinto Encuentro process. Catholic Hispanic Ministry's recent history shows that the 1987 National Pastoral Plan for Hispanic Ministry triggered an incredible growth in the Church's response to the Hispanic presence at the time. It was a robust and clear response that has guided Hispanic ministry for the past 30 years with many successful results. However, the time and circumstances have changed. We are also seeing generational change from a largely immigrant population, which is still the reality in many dioceses, to a rapidly growing majority U.S.-born Latino population. A new vision is needed. We believe that a new comprehensive plan will provide the Church in the United States with a vision to guide and strengthen Hispanic ministry over the next 10 to 15 years. So, what is envisioned? First, the statement will consider the priorities already identified by the U.S. bishops for the 2021-2024 planning cycle. Second, the formal statement will also respond to the recommendations of the Quinto Encuentro process in the various ministerial areas, while attempting to be as comprehensive as possible. 5 priorities will likely be a central part of the pastoral vision. Number 1, championing the leadership development and faith formation of Hispanic Latino youth and young adults. Number 2, promotion of vocations to the priesthood and religious life. Number 3, promotion of ministry models and resources suited to the needs of Hispanic Latino families. Number 4, for the Church to be an example and promoter of social justice and human dignity. And finally, number 5, identification of best practices in ministry with Hispanic Latino in parishes, dioceses, and other Catholic institutions. The Fifth Encuentro has provided us with very good data and important recommendations. A renewed vision will help us build on the success of the past and to expand our outreach while at the same time forming new missionary disciples in the Church and in society. For these reasons, Brother Bishops, I ask you to support the development of a comprehensive, formal statement on Hispanic ministry during the next USCCB planning cycle.
I want to thank Bishop Arturo Cepeda and the members of the Subcommittee for Hispanic Affairs for their leadership and excellent work following up to the 5th National Encuentro, particularly for their vision to develop a comprehensive formal statement on Hispanic Latino ministry. Now I would like to open the microphone to your questions and comments about this proposed action item.
Brother Bishops, comments, questions, discussion for Bishop Perez and Bishop Cepeda.
Bishop Mark Brennan.
Bishop Mark Brennan.
On the vocational matter, I'd encourage you to consider also the need for Latino permanent deacons.
Absolutely, that will be part of the discussion as well, because that's a growing need all over the country.
Bishop William Justice.
I want to thank you for that proposal and how wonderful was the 5th Encuentro in the process. I would challenge that the development of the statement uses that process, not quite as huge, but considering and letting people suggest their experience from the 5th Encuentro and what should be in the process. The other thing is, I think it's really important that there's a sense of we've got to get this done, rather than it might come out 3 to 4 or 5 years from now, because I think some of the fire of the 5th Encuentro has gone down a little bit because it's just natural. But if it is delayed and our service and our work with the 5th Encuentro takes a long time, we're in trouble. So that's what I...
Thank you, Bishop. To your first point, we are, yes, intending to continue with the process, which at the very heart of the Quinto Encuentro is that of consultation and listening. And in the process of creating this pastoral statement, we want to continue with the same spirit of the process. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. In regards to the second part, on where are we moving from here and not to let it die, this afternoon we will have an update on the Quinto Encuentro, and I'll be able to be more specific into the steps that now the Encuentro is taken so that we can move from the national level into regional, diocesan, and parish level. Thank you.
Archbishop Sample, followed by Archbishop Laurie.
I just wish to speak very much in favor of the development of this document. I think that, having participated myself personally in the diocesan, regional, and on the national level in the Quinto Encuentro process, there was such great enthusiasm and excitement generated in that process, I know, among my own people. And since the National Encuentro occurred, people are in my ear all the time asking me, what's happening? What's going to happen next? Where's this all going to go? So I think we don't want to lose that enthusiasm and the momentum that we generated during the Quinto Encuentro. And so I'm very much in favor of this. And I would just hope that the statement in laying out a comprehensive vision would be very practical and not simply platitudes and too generic. I think what we're looking for is something that can be very practically put into practice in the local churches. But I thank the group and hope that this goes forward quickly.
Thank you, Archbishop, for your support. And I do want to say that all over the country, the faithful were so moved and so impressed with the love and the care and the presence of the bishops at the National Encuentro that they still continue to talk about that. Thank you, Archbishop.
Archbishop Laurie, followed by Bishop Coyne.
I certainly want to express my strong support for this project and to carry on the spirit and the content of the Encuentro, so very important, particularly as we struggle to retain our Latinos within the communion of the church. And I know people will be asking you to put everything under the sun in this document, probably, and I'm one of those right now, but to pick up a thread of our conversation earlier in this meeting, we spoke about the need to open our Catholic schools more to the Latino community, and I would hope there might be a focus on that as the committee does its work. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop. As I'd mentioned before, we will give you a full update on where we are in the Quinto Encuentro, and now that we do have the proceedings and conclusions actually in our hands, we should be able to follow up in that direction too, because one of the concerns that came from our people in this listening in consultation was Catholic education, and of course to be able to recruit more of our children for Catholic schools. Thank you.
Bishop Coyne, followed by Bishop O'Connell.
This is something I bring up all the time when we talk about developing statements. In a digital culture, I think statements are important as a foundation, but people don't read them. So my encouragement would be that perhaps, and I am fully behind this project, but to see it less as a production of a statement and more of a pastoral plan that would then be broadly disseminated across the digital culture, across the digital means, rather than a large document that just disappears on a shelf.
Absolutely, Bishop Coyne, that is our intent, that it is going to be practical and pastoral and direct service to the people of God, and we will be working with the Committee on Communications to actually make sure that it's digitally present, as well as in the digital platforms of the Fifth Encuentro, which have been really vast and touched lots and lots of hearts and minds.
Bishop O'Connell, followed by Bishop Olmsted.
Thank you. I just want also to speak about the importance of renewing our focus on our Catholic schools. Dr. Spino yesterday said, as we know, 60% of the youth who are under 25, the 25-year-olds and under in the country are Latino youth, yet only 4% of them are in our Catholic schools. And also he has mentioned other places that he's noticed in his surveys across the country that in the parishes where the outreach to the Latino population and the Hispanic ministry is strongest, those are the places where there is less and less connection to our Catholic schools. I want to just reaffirm our commitment to the Catholic schools because they are the best way we have to evangelize and educate our young people. They're also the best way of all of reaching out to their families and to foster devotion, to foster vocations. So this renewed emphasis on all of us working together to bring our Latino youth into our Catholic schools is the best way, I think, possible of fulfilling a lot of what the Encuentro is looking for.
Bishop, thank you very much. I believe that as we collected the data that is now presented in the proceedings, we continue to be looking into the recruitment on, for Hispanic and Latino children into school, young adults, youth, and as was mentioned just yesterday by Dr. Ospino, yes, you're correct that, about 60% of all of the Catholic population in the United States is under 18 has Hispanic Latino heritage. So I think that's very, very important. We also learned from the data that it is actually about 6% of these Hispanic Latinos that are actually receiving Catholic education in Catholic schools. So I think that, again, the data is the one that will continue to give us the force to move forward, de seguir adelante. Thank you.
Bishop Olmsted. Excuse me.
Thank you. I'm very much in favor of this. I'm so grateful for the proposal. And I agree strongly with the need for our Catholic schools to be focused on having as many Catholic children as possible. 80% of our Catholics in the Diocese of Phoenix under 20 are Hispanic. So we have to have that focus. The group that I would like to lift up especially, however, are millennials. That's been the primary group that we had participate in the Quinto Encuentro. They came back with a lot of enthusiasm. And so we need to look not only at the fact that many millennials may be no longer practicing their faith, there are many who are very strongly living their faith. And I think we need to look at encouraging them and encouraging even more leadership among those in our millennial generation. Not only Latinos, even though those are the largest proportions, certainly in our diocese and maybe across the nation who are Catholic, but they can make a great contribution and they're very engaged too with the media at the same time. So thank you.
Cardinal, I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Archbishop. And definitely that is very much at the heart of our reflection and our concern. In fact, you'll hear this afternoon of the works that's being done already in developing a leadership program for our young adults and making sure that they have the proper space in our communities, in our churches, in our dioceses.
Cardinal O'Malley.
I want to support this wonderful document that you're coming up with. I'd like to see you really promote our Catholic schools. There's been no institution in the United States that has moved people out of poverty the way that our Catholic schools have and do. But we know that the vast majority of our Hispanic families cannot afford Catholic schools. I would hope that you will push very much for tax credits and vouchers. And I think when that comes from the minority community, it has a greater impact with our politicians. But if we don't get that, we're never going to get many kids into the Catholic schools. The other thing that I think we need to look at is doing more and more youth centers for Hispanic kids, after-school programs, weekend programs that keeps them in schools, keeps them out of gangs, keeps them close to the church, gives a chance for them to feel part of a parish community. Because getting all of the Catholic kids into Catholic schools again is a dream. When I was in school, it was free, and every Catholic kid was in a Catholic school. Today, that's not possible. But we have to work very hard for vouchers and tax credits. It's the only way that we'll open our Catholic schools to the minority and the kids from low-income families.
Thank you, Your Eminence. And coming from a state, the state of Ohio, with very strong voucher programs, I could certainly attest on how it makes Catholic education available, accessible to many who wouldn't have it otherwise. And the after-school programs are certainly practical ways of reaching out and keeping our young folks very close to our hearts as well. Thank you.
Seeing no others, some final comments before we move for the vote, Bishop Perez.
So, brothers, now I present you with the action item for your consideration and vote. Does the full body of bishops authorize the Committee on Cultural Diversity in the Church and the Church's Subcommittee on Hispanic Affairs to lead the process of developing a new formal statement and comprehensive vision for Hispanic Latino ministry in response to the Fifth Encuentro process to be developed and approved by the full body of bishops during the next USCCB Strategic Planning Cycle 2021-2024?
So the vote required is the majority of members present and voting. The action is on the screen before you. I'd ask that the vote be opened. The vote is open. Please vote now. The voting window is closed. We will tabulate the vote and integrate for bishops voting from Rome. Vote is ready. I believe it will be displayed shortly. With 222 yes votes, the motion passes.
Thank you so much, Brother Bishops, for your leadership and your support for the Quinto Encuentro process and for calling for the development of a new comprehensive formal statement on Hispanic ministry as a pastoral response to the Quinto Encuentro process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bishop Perez and subcommittee. Thank you, Brother Bishops. That's a very resounding yes to develop this immediately. This results from the Fifth Encuentro for Hispanic Latino ministry. We have some announcements from Monsignor Bransfield.
Thank you, Eminence. Your Eminences, Your Excellencies, lunch will be served in Grand Ballroom number 5, located on the 3rd floor. As a reminder, the Committee on Priorities and Plans will convene immediately after this meeting, the Kent A.B. room, located on the 4th floor. The Kent A.B. room, it's directly across from the Executive Office, so as you leave the room, you make a right and a second right. The members of the Committee on Priorities and Plans to nominate candidates for the office of Secretary. We will reconvene at 2 p.m. in this room for the start of our afternoon session. Thank you, Eminence.
Thank you, Monsignor. Archbishop Gomez leading us, our President-elect, in an Angelus. That's good.
Thank you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
The angel of the Lord declared unto Mary,
She conceived by the Holy Spirit.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, blessed the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Behold the handmaid of the Lord.
Be it done unto me according to thy word.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, blessed the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
And the Word was made flesh.
And dwelt among us.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, blessed the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Pray for us, O Holy Mother of God.
That we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ.
Let us pray. Pour forth, we beseech you, O Lord.
Thy grace to our hearts, that we, to whom the incarnation of Christ our Son was made known by the message of an angel, may by his passion and cross be brought to the glory of his resurrection. Through the same Christ our Lord. Amen.
Bless us, O Lord.
And these thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Well, thank you.